This is a review of rhetorical devices. Rhetorical devices are strategies that authors use to convince their audience of whatever argument it is they're making. And you can break rhetorical devices down into three categories: logos, ethos, and pathos. And before I talk about these examples on the side, I'm going to break down each of those three and give you some examples. The first one is logos. Logos is convincing someone using logic. And that could look like presenting statistics or facts that you gathered from research. Maybe you make an analogy, which is a comparison, or you just give specific reasons why someone should do a certain thing. Those are all examples of using the rhetorical device of logos. So you could see logos show up maybe if someone is using research about the spread of coronavirus to determine whether people should wear masks in public. That's something that happened recently. They used to say that you don't need to wear masks, and now we have more research gathered that says maybe actually you should. If you like true crime or maybe just shows that have courtroom scenes in general, anytime someone presents a crime scene photograph in a court case, that's using logos. They're given pretty concrete evidence. And another example that maybe you've used if you have siblings, if you talk about what a sibling of yours has been allowed to do as a reason for why you should have the same privilege, that's also an example of logos. I've got one more example of logos here. This is an example of an analogy. An analogy is a comparison between usually something that's a little bit more abstract and hard to picture, and they're comparing it to something that's really, really concrete to help you understand that concept. So this video here, I just have a picture from it. This is something that you might have seen in talking about social distancing, and they're using this analogy of matches to make it really concrete the impact that social distancing can have. So what they're saying is like, look at all these matches. They're so close together that if one catches on fire, all the rest are going to catch on fire. And that is meant to compare like these burnt matches to people who have the virus. And then by showing this one little match taking a step out of the line, they're creating enough difference between the matches that are on fire or people who have the virus to all of the matches that aren't on fire or people who don't have the virus. So that's an example of an analogy. All right, next up is ethos. Ethos is convincing someone using credibility or authority. And that looks like stating why you're qualified to give an opinion or advice. Examples of ethos include listing previous job experience on a resume. A lot of times you'll hear this in different political ads or speeches. A candidate, if they are visiting a certain state or a certain group of people, they often try to explain some connection they have with that group. So like the example I just put up here says, a political candidate explaining a connection they have to factory work in a speech to factory workers. Maybe this candidate would say, oh, my dad used to work in a factory just like this one, and he'd come home every day proud of what he did. And, you know, they're trying to explain how they're connected to this particular thing. And last, maybe you are looking at an advertisement and that advertisement cites the advice of some sort of expert in that field. Like for toothpaste, maybe they'd say it's recommended by dentists. That's having some sort of credible source back up their argument. And last up is pathos. Pathos is convincing someone using emotions. And this one is the easiest to spot. It's any type of strategy that tries to evoke emotion. That is an example of pathos. So you might see that in, like, a lot of times car commercials, they'll use really positive, upbeat background music. They're always filming it on a really sunny day, and you see the whole family jumping into the car, and then the cute little golden retriever jumps in afterwards, and they're trying to create this feeling of, look how happy your family is going to be if you buy this, you know, Subaru or whatever it is. That's an example of pathos. You might also see, this is a less positive example, maybe someone's making an anti-war campaign, and as the narrator is explaining their reasons in the background, they're also showing faces of people who have been impacted by war, and their hope is that you're going to have an emotional reaction to those faces so that you're going to be more convinced of their argument. The last example I have here for pathos is if someone's trying to advertise for pet adoptions, They might show you pictures of their animals that are in cages, especially puppies or kittens, or something that's kind of usually seen as really, really cute. They'll try to show it in a dire situation so that people will want to adopt those pets. So to review, rhetorical devices can be broken into three categories: logos, ethos, and pathos. Those are all different types of strategies that an author is going to use if they're trying to convince someone. And coming back to this example here, in the Harry Potter series, there's these three main characters. Hermione is up here at the top, and she's an example for logos because whenever she's trying to convince someone, she cites something she read in a book or some sort of fact that she's learned about that thing. In the middle here, we have Ron, who's an example of pathos because he's always thinking about how a certain situation is going to impact someone else emotionally. And then finally, Harry at the bottom, he in the series is called the Chosen One. And in this series, the fact that he is this chosen one means that he has to complete a certain mission simply because he's the one who was destined to do it. So that's an example of ethos because he has this credibility. He was born into this destiny that he has to fulfill. So there's your review of rhetorical devices. Let me know if you have any questions.